Hello, this is QM, short for Quentin McLeod, and got quite a few topics I'd like to talk about today. First being probably the biggest topic of the day, and that's the PS Vita TV. And basically, it's a new device that Sony they announced earlier this morning. That is essentially it's a PS Vita without a screen. So yes, the PS Vita TV is a PS Vita with no screen. You hook it up to your television, and it plays Vita games. A lot of people are pretty excited about it. People are saying, "Oh, this is great! I can play Vita games on my TV." But Nintendo did release the Game Boy player and the Super Game Boy, and there was a problem with that. Not so much that the hardware was bad or anything like that, because it wasn't. The hardware was good back then, but there were several factors, and I'd like to discuss them. Back then, there wasn't really these devices didn't really connect to the internet, or I should say the device that they connected to, like Super Nintendo and the GameCube. The GameCube could if you bought like a special modem with it, but the Super Nintendo did not connect to the internet. Unless, of course, I think they did have X-Play back then. But, of course, there was no Nintendo service to connect it to update it, or anything like that. And the reason why I bring this all up, the whole internet thing, is because with the Game Boy, or the Super Game Boy on the Super Nintendo, you had to have an accessory to hook it to your Super Nintendo in order for you to play it on your television. Of course, Nintendo could have released a separate console that would have done the same thing, but what they were really trying to do is they were trying to get their mobile fan base on their console fan base, trying to like cross the two together by kind of combining the Game Boy and the Super Nintendo. That's what they were trying to do, just to bridge those two markets together. And that was the whole purpose of it. Back then, like I said, there was no internet, so they couldn't update the Super Nintendo to support Game Boy games. Like very similar to the Xbox Live Arcade or the Virtual Console on the Wii U, where you could just download the game and play it. They didn't have anything like that, so they kind of had to say, well, here's a proprietary device, just hook up your Game Boy cartridge to it and then have at it. But with the PlayStation 4, and I'll even go as far as to say the PlayStation 3, those are internet-ready devices. So instead of allowing you to download Vita games directly onto your PlayStation 4 or even your PlayStation 3 to play on your TV, they just said, well, you know what, let's just release a separate accessory so you can do that. And to be honest with you, allowing people to play Vita games directly from the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 3 without buying a separate device would have made a lot more sense, because the consumer wouldn't need to spend an additional $100 to be able to take advantage of that feature like they do now. And a lot of people would say, well, the PS Vita TV also allows you to take advantage of streaming services, so if someone else is watching the TV, you can simply turn on your PlayStation 4 and then connect the PS Vita TV to a different television and use remote play and do streaming features like that. But the thing about that is, the Vita itself, the original portable PS Vita, could have done the same thing. But they did not give it that functionality. They did not allow the original PS Vita to hook up to a television and do what the PS Vita TV is doing. So if you already own a PS Vita, instead of you having this ability to do what the PS Vita TV is doing, they're just saying, well, you're going to have to purchase another device to take advantage of this feature that we could have easily put into the PS4 or the PS3 without you having to purchase an additional piece of hardware. That's my whole issue, is you'd have to do that. And Another thing is that the PS Vita TV, which, like I said before, is a PS Vita without a screen that hooks to your television. The issue with having that particular device is that earlier, and I think even till today, Sony has been advertising the PS Vita as a way to enjoy console games on the go. You know, when the Vita was first out, I mean, you had games like Uncharted and God of War, and I believe there was even a Grand Theft Auto as well. And they were just saying, hey, you could, the games you enjoy on your PlayStation 3, you can, take them with you, the little PS Vita versions, and you'll have a console experience on the go. But with this, it's kind of like they're doing a 180, saying, well, you can have that console experience on the go on your television, which isn't necessarily, a console experience on the go. You're just enjoying Vita games on your television. And that's the point I'm essentially trying to make, is that, because I was arguing before that instead of them releasing games on the PS4, PS3, and allowing people to enjoy the games that way, they just released this device to say, okay, well, you can play your games on your television. But the whole issue is that they were originally arguing that you could enjoy console games on the go. And I suppose the major part about that is most people do not like to play portable games on their television when there are superior versions of those games already available to them. There's a lot of games that have come out for the Vita and the PlayStation 3 that are relatively similar, not too much. Like Uncharted was like a separate game, but you did have Uncharted 2 and you do have Uncharted 3. And if you look at it, I mean, you could look at it as, okay, well, I can play this other Uncharted game on my television, which may be exclusive to the Vita. But Uncharted 3 is a superior version. Now, of course, there are games that are pretty much the same on PS3 and the Vita. But as history has always told, people would rather play a superior version of a game that's designed for their television through their console and not through their portable. And I believe Nintendo was aware of this. This is one of the reasons why Nintendo does not release Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, or even DS games on their virtual console on the Wii U. They put it actually on the 3DS because those games were designed to be played on the go. That's why they don't have it on the Wii U, because people don't like to play portable games on their television, as history has told. And I don't think that the PS Vita TV is really going to help resurrect the Vita because of this. I think this is Sony's desperate attempt to make the PS Vita relevant, because as you know, when they start to sell the PS Vita TV, they're going to lump PS Vita TV right along with the PS Vita in terms of sales, so it all looks positive for Sony. But even when they do that, or even if they do that, I just don't see the PS Vita becoming relevant. But it's definitely something that may be good for consumers who don't already own a PS Vita. Of course, PS Vita TV will eat into sales of the PS Vita. It will eat into the sales. But we'll see what happens and go from there. Next topic is Hip Hop Gamer, his latest video. I was watching his latest one about Nintendo refusing Sony's help. I really don't think it's about that. I don't even know why he labeled it that, because he doesn't really talk about Nintendo refusing Sony's help. He talks about everything else. Hip Hop Gamer has been in the spotlight about various different topics that he's talked about in the past, and several other things that he may not have spoken about. But yeah, he's been in the limelight for a little bit. And this guy, he's a really, to me, he seems like he's a really big Sony fanboy. Like, he really likes Sony. He doesn't ever speak negatively about Sony. In the past, he used to never speak negatively about anything in regards to, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony. He'll usually always have positive things to say, but this video was a little bit different. He, I guess, calls himself giving Nintendo advice to help them make the Wii U successful, but a lot of his information seems to be wrong. Of course, you know, in his video he claims to love Nintendo, but and he made a couple of Nintendo versus Sega Genesis videos, so you know, I can't really debate whether he loves Nintendo or not, but he's a really big Sony fanboy, so whatever the case may be, in his video he misquoted Reggie. He was saying that Reggie was saying meh to the competition, when in reality he was really saying meh to the competition launch lineup. Because Reggie was asked about what he thought about the PS4 and the Xbox One's launch lineup, which, you know, in reality, the launch lineup is really just a bunch of, well, they're really ports. So there's not really much out there for the launch lineup for these systems. The PS4 may have a better launch lineup in Japan, but that's way in February. But for all the other markets, they're just ports. Whereas Nintendo is really launching some pretty heavy hitters this holiday. But he did misquote Reggie on that. And then he goes on a tangent about the very thing that he misquoted. Now, he claims that Nintendo is still relying on Mario and rehashed games, as if other companies aren't already doing this, like Sony and Microsoft. He keeps saying that, oh, Nintendo's just relying on Mario when they should be, you know, coming up with new IPs. Sony does come out with new IPs, but their new IPs aren't really successful at all. And I think he kind of skips that whole reality. But he also ignores the fact that Sony and Microsoft do the same thing, possibly even more so. I mean, we've already received 3 Uncharted's in one generation. We received a ton of Halos in one generation, a ton of Call of Duties. Completely ignores that fact, completely ignores it, and says that, oh, Nintendo can't be doing this in this sort of market. He's actually pretty wrong about that. Very, very wrong. And Nintendo reuses their IPs, but their IPs are usually always in the form of different games. Like Mario Kart isn't anything like Mario Galaxy, and Mario Galaxy isn't anything like Mario Party. They're separate games that use the same IP. And I think he's getting this confused with games that are essentially sequels to other games. Mario Party is not a sequel to Mario Galaxy, and Mario Galaxy certainly isn't a sequel to Mario Kart. So I have no idea where he was going with that one. He also quotes Pete Hines from Bethesda from their bonus round video, and the problem with that bonus round video is that, one, Bethesda hasn't supported Nintendo since the NES. So they were the wrong people to even ask about supporting Nintendo, because they don't seem to like Nintendo at all. And Gearbox was actually, I forget the guy's name, but Gearbox was also on that video. And the thing about Gearbox is they were there from the beginning. Nintendo did go to Gearbox before the console was released to talk about certain aspects of their game. There's several interviews in which Gearbox has been quoted as to saying that Nintendo has reached out to them, and you know, that's where the whole Aliens Colonial Marines was coming from, or Colonial Marines. So I don't even know why Gearbox was there, or why Bethesda was saying, oh, Nintendo needs to contact us or people like Gearbox, when they have. If everyone ever remembers, I know a lot of people have short memory spans, the analog sticks on the gamepad for the Wii U were changed due to developer input. That's the whole reason why they changed the analog sticks, as developers felt that they needed to change it. The Wii U Pro controller was modeled after the Xbox 360 controller because third parties asked for it. It's not as if Nintendo hasn't reached out to these developers about their system. They did. And if anyone realizes, or anyone remembers, the Wii U dev kits were also changed during this whole process when third-party developers were complaining about certain aspects of, you know, the hardware. even Namco was quoted as saying that Nintendo has listened to their advice on certain changes they should do on the hardware. So to say that Nintendo doesn't listen to third-party developers in regards to the hardware is not true. They have been, and they've actually been praised for it before the Wii U was released. So I don't know why people are saying this. It's not true. That just confuses the heck out of me. Well, moving on. He also claims that Call of Duty doesn't seem to be as talked about as Battlefield 4, realizing that Call of Duty has always been more popular than Battlefield the series, since Call of Duty has been coming out. I don't really know what he's talking about here. Call of Duty will obviously sell many copies, possibly even more than Battlefield 4, and based on the trend that Call of Duty has been setting every year, and there's no doubt about it. So, considering that the Wii U is getting Call of Duty and not Battlefield 4, which Call of Duty is a more popular game, I don't know where he's going with that. I don't get it. I don't get it. Then he says Nintendo should make a new console, or they should drop the Wii U after a year of virtually no competition at all, and make a new console. That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You don't build a new console because your initial console is not selling. You just don't do that. There have been several consoles in the past that have came out selling very, very poorly and have turned around, like the PS3, for example. PS3 was horrible the first year, and then Sony turned that around. Now it's doing a lot better. Sony didn't just say, forget the PlayStation 3, even though, to be honest with you, they would have saved a lot more money if they did it, but they didn't. But they turned their system around, and now it's doing a lot better. Nintendo doesn't need to do that. Nintendo has already announced or actually showcased a profit from even having failing console sales. Now, of course, Nintendo said that they were losing money for each console sold. So it only makes sense that Nintendo would earn a profit because the system isn't selling, because they lose money when they sell it. But of course, that's going to change this holiday season going into 2014. I don't really think they should have consoles. It doesn't make any sense. He also claims that Nintendo doesn't have a Halo or Uncharted, because he claims that Nintendo says Mario sells like 8 million copies, but Halo sells 9 and Uncharted sells more. And he doesn't realize that the highest selling games of all time are Nintendo games, and those games are only on one console. I think, what is it, Mario Kart? Mario Kart was like in the 30 to 40 million, and that's just one console. Nintendo games are the highest selling games of all time. For him to compare Mario to Halo Uncharted, like their sales dwarf theirs. Why would he even compare them? I really don't know. And the fact that he announced, or he even said that Nintendo doesn't have a Halo Uncharted, well, Sony doesn't have a Halo either, and Microsoft doesn't have an Uncharted. So why would he include those two games to say Nintendo doesn't have those games? I don't know. And Nintendo has higher selling games than the competition. I don't know. His whole video just seemed backward. I think this is just a sign of someone who likes to talk about things they don't know what they're talking about. It's best that they do research first and then talk about it. But this guy clearly did not. He did not do any research on anything that he was talking about. Certain things could have been correct. I mean, if you look at it with a warped, if you looked at it in a warped sense, then yeah, he could have been right on a couple of things. But considering that his initial premise was already incorrect, you could have told by that time that the rest of his video would have been wrong as well. So, yeah. But anyway, that's it for this video. And I know I haven't made a video in a very long time, and perhaps I will. So I'm just gonna go ahead and end this now, and basically call it a day.